Welcome to Chatter, no frills tech news with the top 5 stories of the day, here from my kitchen. So without further ado, let me tell you what stories we have in store today. We will talk about OpenAI Sora, Anthropic's new model context window, Uber's latest gig, LinkedIn's Gen AI innovation and Asian apps. So without further ado, let's talk about Sora. As you all know, Zora is OpenAI's text-to-video model. It's really good. The quality is amazing. So you type in, show me a video with a panda running down the street, and the quality is flawless. So it could be used for generating B-roll in movies or other purposes, even if it's more advanced, complete storytelling like creating whole movies. I don't think the technology is there yet, but it's getting ready for market. And in their process of getting it out in the market, OpenAI hit a little snafu with the creatives. The creatives leaked access to the beta of OpenAI Sora, essentially creating a protest letter claiming how they are exploited by OpenAI. OpenAI basically uses these creatives as free testers. They're hoping to get some testimonials out of them. They're hoping once they launch the product, they can show, hey, look at all these movies that are created with our software to attract more customers. But the creative said, no way we're doing this. You need to pay us if you want to test your product and use us for your marketing purposes. So it's an interesting turn, specifically in these days, in this environment where creatives probably hate everything with generative AI. They are afraid of AI stealing their jobs. And now for OpenAI to be so, I don't know how I should call it, but a little bit stupid to be so thoughtless about approaching creatives in how they're asking them for their help and not even paying them. So they should have been done a lot better here, if you ask me, by providing maybe additional resources, guaranteeing maybe the movies are being put into places. From what I've read, basically the creatives were just offered, well, once we publish our product, your movies could be one of the examples. And that might be not, essentially is not enough to sway the creatives these days. But the OpenAI now pulled access, so they're gonna rework their launch strategy, maybe potentially expanding their creative network to other individuals that might be more engaging or favorable to what they need. And then as a consumer, I'm really excited to see what they come up with. Although we saw recently the launch of other products like Zuno, who are doing the same thing, so text to video AI, and also achieving really high quality. So Zora, once it was announced roughly a year ago, they were top of the league, but I don't think now they were able to keep their spot. So this launch delay, with sort of like botching the launch with their relationships with creatives, is not helping them right now. Well, that's that. Let's see what else we have on the docket. Next, I wanted to talk about Anthropic's Model Context Protocol, or short MCP, which I was very excited to read about, because it's essentially an open source framework how you can use their technology in your workflow. So they have obviously the AI model Claude, and you might be using ChatGPT or Gemini or any other AI model. But sort of what is missing to really make it valuable is the integration into data sources, your database, into tools like your CRM system or Slack. And that's what MCP is offering. So MCP is giving you guidelines and a standardized framework for developers to work in so that they can access all these tools from within the AI model. And so the big benefit obviously is, as you put everything under one hood, the AI is able to pull out all of that information and feed it into the right systems. So that's what I meant with it not generates like an outcome or response to your query, but it creates a whole workflow. So you're coming from, just asking how is the weather today to getting an answer, to being able to reference your customer information, feed it into Slack, sending a reminder, sending maybe a pitch deck to someone based on data you see elsewhere in a database. And now all of a sudden it becomes really exciting. And that's certainly my opinion that the industry is going towards that direction, because most of the value in AI lies in these integrated workflows. I think the unique advantage and why I was so excited about Anthropic's coming out with this as open source specifically is because they know from the competitive landscape, everyone else won't have that ability, right? Because you have Gemini, who's going to work through something in Google Cloud. You have OpenAI, who's going to work for something with Microsoft Azure. And Anthropic has the ability to work with all of them by using their framework. So companies potentially might choose their framework as a remedy to avoid vendor lock-in, right? Because if you go with Gemini and you have to use the framework on Google Cloud, then you're in Google Cloud. And Anthropic's MCP framework at least gives you the option to go elsewhere. By going open source, they might be iterating much faster, as many more people are going to contribute to the project than what they have internally. And as one of the, I think it's the only major player without major financing in the background, like no Microsoft, no Google, no Elon Musk in the case of XAI. They don't have unlimited funding. So using that competitive advantage of not being one of those funding giants is, I think, a very smart business move. And I'm somewhat excited to see how it will play out. All right. We stay obviously in the space of AI. Now talking about Uber. Uber has an interesting new exploration. They're calling it scaled solutions, and essentially they're paying freelancers to solve coding questions and data annotation. So Uber made the experience they obviously had to do it with the ride business, but also specifically with Uber Eats, where they had to understand how to translate, for instance, a restaurant's menu to a digital menu, how to convert the data, how to annotate maybe pictures, images of food. And all of those learnings, they're packaged into a product that they're now trying to sell through their network of gig workers. So there's like the two things coming together for them: the expertise, how data annotation is done right, as well as their expertise in scaling freelancing networks. And there's a bunch of companies who are really interested in that. In the day of AI, where data is really the secret sauce for a model's performance, this might be a competitive advantage, right? If you have annotated data that only you have and no one else has. So companies should, pay for the service. And in their, launch blog post, they mentioned specifically Niantic. So Niantic is the company behind Pokemon Go, and they're using Uber services, so their contractor network essentially, to annotate like their 3D map. So because when they have better information about, their 3D map that they want to use in one of their games, they can integrate it better with the rest of the gameplay. So it creates a better world for gamers. Really interesting. And given that, as I said, data is so important for AI models, I think more of that will be needed. And if Uber can scale that, as they've done so far, it would be really important. It also notices that people who do data annotation are paid very, very poorly. So that's a little bit disappointing. But it's obviously not surprising, as you need a lot of data. And seemingly companies are trading off quality through costs. So they're using cheaper labor, but hoping to get more data annotated, even though maybe the quality might be slightly lower. All right, from data annotation to tech stack. So this one is a bit more technical, talking about LinkedIn and how they solved AI context. So that's a topic that I think is top of mind for many people. If you use AI in your daily work, usually what you give the model with every prompt is context, right? You want to know, hey, here are all my emails. What should I respond to this topic? This is what the customer has on their website. What product should I sell? So context is extremely important for LLMs to be effective, to give you a right response beyond just something, you know, beyond just plain responses to questions. And LinkedIn has a very creative solution to create basically a memory, or what is called a memory for their LLM, by reusing some of this tech stack that I've already built for messaging. So essentially, if you within LinkedIn, you would text someone and generative AI would maybe suggest a response. Obviously, that model needs to have the context of the conversation. And they initially, what was interesting to see was their journey. So they started with, hey model, here's the entire conversation that this person had with the other person, and you can use that to generate the next response. And what they've noticed is that the quality was very low because the model, maybe in a long conversation, there are many different topics. And what is really important is might be just maybe the last few messages or maybe a specific topic, why someone reached out. So what they found is they're basically placing something in between. So semantic search using embeddings and summarization. So basically, based on kind of like the last few questions, they look for using the semantic search to find similar things that you've mentioned about this topic in the past. So when you have a conversation about maybe selling a product into an automotive company, it will look through when in the conversation you mentioned something about automotive, the industry, or something related. So it has that part summarized at the point where you then prompt them to maybe generate a pitch, generate a response to a certain question. So it's really interesting. And, if this could be scaled beyond just previous messages, but to other parts, that is the golden goose that we have yet to see, I think, from the major AI players, right? Because I think the vision that we all promised is AI will know all your Google Docs, everything that's in the cloud, all your emails, etc. And now LinkedIn has this practical proof point that at least part of that is actually possible. And so for me personally, I think this is really important to personalize stories, because like I personally, I really hate it when I interact with an AI and I'm thinking, you should know this, we talked about this before, or I gave you the fact before. So having a more robust system will be extremely valuable, specifically in a commercial sense. All right, so we landed at our last topics where we wanted to talk about Asian apps and why Asian apps are thriving in the West. So as a proof point, obviously everyone knows TikTok, everyone knows Temu, everyone knows Shein. Recently there have been a couple of apps coming from Asia that have really overtaken the Western world. So ByteDance and Tencent are doing a really good job of creating mobile-first apps. And I found it interesting to read, like, why are they succeeding? Why is it so easy for them to get a new app into the App Store charts in Western worlds? We don't see it the other way around. And so basically this interesting article that I found summarized it or gave as a main hypothesis that within Asia, specifically in China, people are used to these super apps, right? Super apps that not just have one functionality like WhatsApp, where you can exchange messages, but when we look at WeChat, it's a whole ecosystem. You can shop things, you can search stores, you can pay for goods and services. So it has much more functionality. And the hypothesis is because they used to think holistically about a customer journey. So not just, this person wants to send a message, A, B, C, done. They're thinking about, well, this person has this problem, then they need to do A, B, C, D, E, F, blah, 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 blah. So by knowing more about the journey, they're able to create a more holistic experience. And what we've seen in the past few years is that it's very much appreciated by users that they're coming up with these new interfaces, right? Like TikTok took us all by storm, literally like YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels. They copied it one to one. I think now every app that comes out, including our chatter-io app, will have that swiping mechanism, where everything is focused just on the content, and content selection is not done through like drop downs or menus like it was done in the old days. And I think more recently we saw it with Amazon Haul, which is basically Amazon's version of Temu, that are trying to compete in that space as well. So I think it's really good to see that Asian companies continue to pump out user experience innovations. I, as a European, would like also to be European companies doing that more frequently, as it shows like how connected we are as a world, bringing new innovation and learning from each other. So in theory, or conceptually speaking, this is very beneficial to everyone. Obviously, there are concerns about affiliations, data security, specifically like addiction around social media. And that might not be just tied to Asian apps, but to Western or to most of apps specifically. But we obviously have to learn from those as well. All right, good conversation. So I hope you enjoyed this style of consuming news. I'll get back to you tomorrow with new stories. Thank you for tuning in.